Hello everybody, Chandelure here, and today I have a little list for you of what I believe are the top 10 Scarfers in Scarlet and Violet NU. Let's get right into it. First of all, what makes a good Choice Scarf user? So the point of using Choice Scarf is usually to be a revenge killer, to outspeed your opponents, and to do that you need to have some amount of speed to begin with. So first of all, a Choice Scarfer must be somewhat fast. In order to be not super punishable, it's also very nice to have a pivot move available, such as U-turn. And if that's not available, then at the very least you want to have either Trick or Switcheroo, so you can get rid of your Choice Scarf, making you less punishable and, locking in the opposing walls into the same move, which really limits them. Next, a good Choice Scarfer doesn't really mind hazards that much. Something like Staraptor isn't really used as a Choice Scarf for NU just because it gets worn down by rocks so easily. And same reason that you don't see, for example, Choice Scarf Galvantula. I mean, some people try to run it, but I personally wouldn't recommend it because, again, it's weak to hazards. And finally, it helps if a mon has some defensive utility. Like, if you're able to switch it into attacks, it will have a slightly higher ranking than, a mon with absolutely zero bulk. And with that, we'll start off with number 10, which I have put Indeedee Male. Indeedee has some very unique characteristics. Setting up Psychic Surge, it's able to stop priority sweepers like Lycanroc or Lucario. It offers excellent utility to its team, with the use of Trick, like I said, to cripple those walls, and Healing Wish to, get a sweeper back up to full HP, give it a second chance. Its Expanding Force is extremely powerful, getting the boost from its own psychic terrain, but on the downsides, it is extremely physically frail, dying to pretty much any knockoff or U-turn headed its way, and it doesn't really have great coverage outside of Dazzling Gleam, which is just a base 80 power off of your base 105 special attack, so you're usually better off just tricking any dark types that are switching in. And with that, let's go to number 9, which is Rotom-Mow. It has a very strong Volt Switch. Strong as in not exactly the highest base power, but very hard to switch into, because ground types are very threatened by its Leaf Storm. It is somewhat resistant to hazards, because it has Levitate, so while it still takes neutral damage from rocks, it doesn't get worn down by spikes, which is very nice. It still has utility with the use of Trick, and can even catch some switch-ins with Will-O-Wisp. But on the downside, it's not super bulky, because if you're running Choice Scarf, you're investing it offensively, and therefore your low HP stat kind of rears its ugly head. And Rotom doesn't really have any coverage moves outside of its stabs with Volt Switch, Thunderbolt, and Leaf Storm, and it can be very predictable in that matter. At number 8, we have Chandelure. Chandelure has some very powerful stab attacks with Fire Blast and Shadow Ball, coming off of base 145 special attack. Again, it has Trick to punish its switch-ins like Incineroar. It is spooky. It is weak to Stealth Rock, unfortunately. It's very limited to the number of times that it can switch in and kind of do its thing. So while this is a very strong mon in NU in particular, Heavy Duty Boots I think is generally better, or at least specs to get a more breaking power, but with Scarf, your power's a little bit restricted, and your days are numbered with Stealth Rock on the field. And it is on the slower end of Scarfers with only base 80 speed, but that's enough to get the job done against anything that's not boosted. Up next, we've got Porygon-Z, which is in a similar camp, speed-wise. It's a bit slow, but with the use of Choice Scarf, it kind of overcomes that middling speed stat. If you manage to get a download boost in special attack, this thing becomes absurdly threatening, even without a Choice Specs or a Life Orb. But the fact that you are running, a Choice Scarf means that you are lacking that boost in power to break things you normally would. And it's a normal type, which means it doesn't have that great defensive utility. It's not switching into that many things, but it at least has the bulk to take a hit or two. Number 6, we've got Munkidori. This thing has, actually usable bulk, base 90 HP, base 90 special defense, and has pretty good defensive typing. It can tank fairy type attacks, or it has a quad fighting resist, so it's pretty useful in that regard. It's a grounded poison, which lets you soak up toxic spikes, that's always nice. And it has the ability to spread toxic while pivoting thanks to its ability. It's got access to both U-turn and Trick to both pivot and cripple walls. However, it is easily walled by steals, unless you're trying to fit Focus Blast, on your already limited moveset. Number 5, we have Infernape. This mon hasn't seen the spotlight for a while, but I think it still has some potential, even though I am kind of a hater. It has a really good speed stat of 108, making it faster than a lot of the other Scarfers. It's able to beat Vileplume. Unlike a lot of other Scarfers which get punished while clicking U-turn, this thing can at least threaten it with Flare Blitz. It is immune to burns, so U-turning on a Talonflame is no big deal. We're not worried about Flame Body. And we still have access to Switcheroo and U-turn, both excellent moves. Infernape, though, I feel works a lot better on paper than in practice. Its attacks aren't too much to write home about, it's only base 104, and you're not really using the special attack most of the time. And, between the recoil of Flare Blitz and taking full damage from hazards, it does get worn down pretty easily. At number 4, I put Basculegion. Simply because the Ghost type is very useful. You're immune to a lot of priority from Extreme Speed or Mach Punch. And it has probably the strongest pivoting move of any of the choice Scarfers with Flip Turn. With an adaptability boost, this thing hits like an absolute truck. It has a solid bulk, like an amazing 120 HP stat. And, Water Ghost is really good defensive typing. It does struggle into water immunities, particularly Vaporeon. You often rely on your Flip Turn to, reposition and bring your other breakers in. But as soon as you run into a water immunity, that game plan is interrupted. It is worn down by hazards and recoil, similar to Infernape. This thing can click Wave Crash, do a lot of damage, but only so many times. And it is somewhat slow. It is the slowest Scarf on our list here at only 78 base speed. I've got a few honorable mentions before we break into our top 3. First of all, Serena. This is a mon I absolutely love to run Choice Scarf on because no one expects it. Similar to Indeedee, it's good at stopping priority sweepers with its ability, Queenly Majesty, and it has really good coverage with a Power Whip, High Jump Kick, Triple Axle, Knockoff, you name it. Unfortunately, most of these moves have pretty poor accuracy, 85 to 90. Sounds like it would be good enough, but it always seems to miss at the most crucial of moments. Ditto is a mon we saw a lot when the sun was around. It definitely obliterates the Hyper Offense matchup because you can copy any sort of boosts. But just as well as it beats HO, it's a little bit useless against most other team types. It's not that great against balance, so it's very dependent on what the meta is around it. Finally, I've lumped Florges and Cresselia kind of into the same category here as Choice Scarfers, in that they're usually not keeping this Choice Scarf. They're tricking it away, and then boosting up with Calm Mind, healing up with Synthesis or Moonlight. So it's kind of a role compression where you can get that disruption with Choice Scarf and also, boost to be a win condition. But they do lack immediate power, especially Cresselia. Finally, we get into our top 3. We've got Inteleon. This might surprise some of you because Inteleon is ranked PU at the moment, but I think it's very, very strong. It's got the stats to back it up. It is the fastest viable Choice Scarfer in my opinion. Nothing really faster wants to run Scarf. And as a result, you can threaten all the other Choice Scarfers. It also revenge kills any speed boosted threats, like a Dragon Dance Flygon, even Tidy Up Chinchino, which not much else can really match the speed of. It can still clean games, even without the boost from the choice specs. Once you get down into Torrent with Terra, Water, Surf, you can absolutely clean. And most people assume it to be running that choice specs, so you can really catch them off guard by running Scarf. So on the downsides, it is quite frail, only base 65 defenses, 70 HP, so you can't switch into that many things, but with its water typing, you can still tank some water attacks. And it is, again, similar to Basculegion, kind of walled by bulky water types, like Vaporeon, but Inteleon is less punishable because it can still U-turn into its teammates. At number 2, you may have guessed it, we've got Flygon. To me, the best thing about Flygon is it's very, very hazard resistant, immune to spikes, and resists stealth rocks. It has other great resists, it gives you electric immunity and a ground immunity. It fits a lot of defensive things on one team while still being a fast choice Scarfer. It has a very nice ambiguity with what set it's running. It could be Dragon Dance, Scarf, Choice Band. There's all sorts of Flygon sets out there, so they may not expect you to be running Scarf, even though it is a possibility. And finally, it can run Stealth Rocks, even though it's Choice Scarf. So it's kind of a nice way to glue your team together. There's not many downsides to Flygon, other than, base 100 attack isn't too much to write home about. It still has powerful Earthquakes, which are nice, but its Dragon Stab options aren't the greatest either. You know, locking into Outreach can get you easily killed by, you know, a Fairy type, and Dragon Claw just isn't much to write home about. I think you all know who's at number 1. That is, of course, Mienshao. The best Choice Scarf for an NU, hands down. Regenerator is probably its greatest asset. You know, being able to pivot out and heal up every time just makes this thing impossible to wear down through hazards, which is very useful. Its speed tier of 105 is pretty much used as the benchmark for all other Scarfers because it simply is the best. It can comfortably fit, you know, U-turn, knockoff, and things like Stone Edge to hit Talonflame, which is a common switch in, or Ice Spinner to hit, you know, Flygon or even Vileplume. On the downside, your opponent will pretty much always assume that you're Choice Scarf because that is its best set, and it doesn't really have much defensive utility. It has very, very frail defenses, and you're not really switching into anything except for maybe, you know, a knockoff that you know that they're clicking. Like, if a Munkidori clicks Poison Jab, you're almost dead just from that alone. But yeah, when used right, this is definitely the best Choice Scarfer, I think, and I think many people are in agreement. Thank you guys for watching. This is a bit different from my usual content. This is a bit like semi-scripted. Hope you guys enjoyed. And make sure you let me know down in the comments what your favorite Scarfer is, especially one that isn't included on this list. You know, there's a lot of viable Choice Scarfers and NeverUsed, and I couldn't cover them all. But, you know, I hope I've done the best of them justice. Alright, thank you guys. See you in the next video.